This is the second episode of Tales from the Zeeborhood. This is a concept show where I decided that since I know a lot of cool people, most of whom I've met through music, I wanted to put them all together in a card catalog, and Tales from the Zeeborhood was born. And when I did my first episode of Tales from the Zeeborhood, it was in June of 2024. It was with my sweet friend Teddy Chan, and it was completely different than what I think the show is going to be now that I've had a year and a half to sit and stew and think about it. I think that each show could be different, and I don't really like putting myself in any sort of constraint. So, Tales from the Zebrahood is essentially a conversational program with all the cool people that I've met throughout my life, mostly connected through music. And tonight we're recording the second episode of Tales from the Zebrahood. And with me is a young man that I met through my love of music. And with me tonight is.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Bianchini, and it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Matthew and I met because he is a very amazing young man, and he sent me an email. He found me through YouTube, and I am pretty much maybe 30 years on the radio, but I am a complete novice when it comes to using YouTube and social media to promote myself. But that's how you do it these days. And Matthew reached out to me, and we had a conversation, and he interviewed me for a love of a mutual band that we love. And I want you to know tonight, I wore my Disco Volante shirt tonight for you.
Oh, that's incredible because that is my favorite album by them.
That's why I wore it. So I was like, okay. And I mean, I remember we talked, about Volante before. So I'm sure that we'll have future conversations about that album and whatnot. But what I thought was really neat about you is you found me through music. And if the world had been anything different, I never would have met you any other way. I mean, how you live, give or take about 6 hours from me, right? You would
Yes.
say about 6 hours from me. We
Uh-huh.
did get to meet once in person, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. But had we not shared a mutual love of a band, Faith No More slash Mr. Bungle slash Mike Patton and Trevor Dunn, we wouldn't be here. And I also brought another prop since this is more just for show. I'm using my Peeping Tom mouse pad tonight for this.
Where on earth did you get that? That is like some super obscure promo material. That's
Well, a
awesome.
while ago, during the pandemic, there was a COVID sale, for lack of a better description, of it was a bunch of clearance stuff, and I decided to do my part with my stimulus check and supported Ipecac and bought a bunch of anything that was random that they had. I have a weird
Uh,
necklace that's a key. I bought all kinds of weird stuff, so that's how I got it. Always check those Ipecac sales.
I always thought that album was super good and flew under the radar of most people.
I
And
agree.
it kind of sounds like Gorillaz, which was a like
Yeah,
a Blur side project that was incubating around the time.
yeah.
So that there was a little trip hop revival thing happening like 10 years after Portishead, and Peeping Tom definitely fit right into that. It's great.
So that's why Matthew's on this show, and that's why Matthew and I get along. Now I'm gonna say my age. I am 48 years old. And how old are you?
I'm 19 years old, but I will be 20 in like 3.5 months.
So we are a significant age difference.
Yes.
However, I consider you a musical peer from day one. And I can't say that
I
about many people. And that sounds really obnoxious of me, but I like a lot of obscure stuff and not too obscure, but obscure enough. And I've never had a friend that I can talk to as fluidly like you with such an age difference. Like you have such an appreciation for music in general, but you really like the classics. And I say classics, I'm not talking like the classic rock, but
yeah.
I
Well,
when
I
we
like some of that. I like some of that stuff too.
well, I want to link to your Substack when I do the blog for this, because I want people to read your piece on Janet Jackson, which was amazing. So I
Yeah.
think I'm getting ahead of myself because, like I said, Matthew and I met through this sheer coincidence of the internet. You searched, I'm assuming, Faith No More and found me, and that was
Um
is that what it was?
no, I mean I think that around the time I was just listening to like, I was into the Patton verse pretty hard, of which I'm not so super connected with now. I mean I do think my favorite band that Patton has been involved with is Mr. Bungle, obviously. But I'm sure I was just I'd listen to a lot of my music through YouTube, And that popped up as the algorithm just serendipitously handed that to me. And I thought, this is super duper cool. And around the time that we did that, I was doing interviews on my own channel, just, cold emailing random pe cool people that I wanted to talk to. And I got like a few like really super duper cool interview opportunities from that. And you were one of them. And I just thought like, just put myself out there and see what comes of it.
Well, I was absolutely impressed because I don't understand YouTube other than to watch it. So I'm learning, and I you absolutely tickled me and you made my day because I was so just not connected to my art and audio and music, and all I
Mhm.
would do is basically listen to my playlist and walk in the cemetery. At that point I was out, how goth of me, but I was very grim, and you showed up, and I'm very glad that we became friends. Now, like I said, you are definitely my musical peer, even though there is an age difference by a drastic amount. You're young enough to be my kid, you know. I don't have
That's
kids. I have
true.
cat. I got cats. It's different.
Yeah.
But so tell me a little bit about how you got into music. I mean, you and I, we chat very quite often about music, and you share music with me, and I share music with you, and I still haven't listened to your stuff yet because I've been so whatever. We'll put links in the blog if you want me to. But so what is your first like musical influences? Like at what age did you start finding like music and want to start like having it be such an interest for you?
Well, I think that I don't come from a particularly musical family. I mean, my aunt, this is technically really kind of irrelevant because he's not related to me, but my aunt had a husband named Jesse who was a pretty amazing saxophone player. He played in a lot of jazz. Um, this is sort of like the post Dixieland stuff where jazz started to get a little more ripping and more groovy, and he was a really great saxophone player. But the only person that I know that is actually related to me that does play music is my uncle, who he's been a songwriter for a super duper long time, and he was kind of the one who introduced me to musical equipment and the art of recording and things like that. And I think that facilitated the music production mania that I kind of have now. But I think that the first music that I ever enjoyed, speaking of Janet Jackson, was indeed Michael Jackson. Um, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, and there was a store at Long Island called FYE,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not I think I've the one that I went to has surely been demolished, but I used to go there a lot with my late grandpa, and I don't know how, but he just had an endless supply of money to buy me CDs and whatever I wanted. So I would just go through the racks, and I don't know why I picked Michael Jackson. I think because you have to remember he was so omnipresent in the culture, there was no escaping MJ at all.
Yeah.
So I got one of those cheapo like best of Michael Jackson CDs, and I also got a Weird Al best of CD. And I feel like those weirdly enough, like their sensibilities like weirdly impacted me in a super duper strange way. But those were the two artists that I remember I got super duper into. And then after that, I was like 8 or 9. I was super duper into They Might Be Giants, who are like probably my favorite rock band, tied with XTC. I didn't get into them until a lot later. Uh, but yeah, I remembered listening to a lot of They Might Be Giants and discovering Mr. Bungle and the Almighty Ween, which I'm still super into. I love
Mhm.
them. And yeah, it's that's the perfect music for an 8 to 9 year old boy to be listening to because it's super like zany and irreverent and eclectic. And I think that if I hadn't gotten into those artists so willingly, I wouldn't have tried the stuff that I was listening to a couple years down the line. So
Yeah. And if people who are listening to this know me personally and know my personal musical tastes, when you say They Might Be Giants and XTC, those are two of my favorite bands, which I didn't realize that
abs
you liked until we started talking. So again, like
Absolutely.
you're just, you are, and this sounds absolutely obnoxious of me, but you remind me so much of myself at your age that that's why you are a delight to speak with, because you
Thank
know
you.
what you like, you have very intelligent opinions on them, and you are not afraid to share them. And I think I love that in a music fan. So I think that I think our friendship is I'm glad that it's based in music, but and other things, but you are definitely impressive.
Well, thank you very much. That's very flattering. That's very flattering to hear. And I'm just thinking about like after I got into They Might Be Giants and Ween and stuff like that, what I was listening to. And that was kind of when I was about 12, I was in middle school. And I do remember getting into the Beatles around that time. And I think every music dork has this moment of like, I just discovered the Beatles. Like these guys are amazing. Like
Yep.
it's only something I know about, not
Yes,
knowing that they're like the most popular rock band and most influential in history.
you're right. No, I think
So
you're right because I my best friend is a huge Beatles. Like that's her favorite band. I went through my Beatles phase at like 17. She was like early on and she was diehard. So you're right. But I think every kid finds the Beatles and they're like, oh, my secret.
yes, yeah. And
What was your first Beatles song or the first Beatles album?
it was the White Album for me.
Oh, very nice.
And I remember like being super I have a really faint memory of I mean, I'm a like a world-class dork, so I would spend all day on Wikipedia just reading about these albums that I hadn't even heard of because my brain just it works in this way where I want to just absorb information like a sponge,
Yeah.
especially in the things that I'm interested in. So I was reading about like the White Album and how they recorded it and all the group infighting and the eclecticism. It just seemed like reading it from afar, I was like, what the heck is this going to sound like? And then I actually did listen to it, and I was like, because the White Album is so eclectic and so zany and so like off the mark, it's got to have like at least 15 different genres. It's like 2 hours long or something crazy like
Yeah.
that. And when I listened to it, I was like, these guys are absolutely incredible. But, the weird thing about it was I was pretty much only a fan of the White Album for like 2 years, and then I started to feel like, well, I should probably listen to their other albums. And I definitely had like Please Please Me and Rubber Soul and Revolver are my favorites outside of the White Album for sure. But they are yeah, I don't really like Sergeant Pepper that much. I find it kind of hokey. But other than that, they're amazing. But I don't need to say that because everybody loves the Beatles, so.
Oh, but you'd be surprised. Sometimes I ask people like, "Are you Beatles or Stones?" And the people that are Stones usually hate the Beatles. That's what I've found in my informal research. I
Never
don't really
liked the
like the
Stones.
Stones very much. I mean, I
No.
appreciate them, but I'm not like, mm,
It's a little, I mean, the Beatles have that kind of dorky innocence to them, and
yeah,
the Stones, it's like a meathead type of thing. I
yeah.
don't know. I don't really like it.
No,
That's my
I mean,
opinion though.
well, I mean, and mine too. Like, and I like the rock side of it. I mean, like, I love Mother's Little Helper. I love Painted Black. I like a lot of songs, but they're
Hmm.
not something I'm like, you know what I want to listen to today? The Rolling Stones. But the Beatles, my favorite album is Abbey Road from them. And I could put on
Hmm.
Abbey Road. Actually, I did recently. And it always sounds good. It's rarely a skipper. There's like only maybe one song I skip, and that to me is a testament of a good album if I don't skip a lot of it.
That was when they started messing around with like the Moog synthesizer
Yeah.
and things got a little more. It's weird because Abbey Road is sort of more pulled back. They started to go in a super duper strange direction with Revolver because Paul was listening to all this Euro avant-garde stuff. And I think Abbey Road it's a nicer, poppier album for sure.
But you got
But
Maxwell Silver Hammer, which is my favorite. That's such a
that's
grim
also
song.
that's my favorite song on Abbey Road too. I love that one.
It's so this I think because you and I, like the sound, like I like the soundscape aspect of a song when there's that kind of extra like and like the ping ping, it's the way it is mixed and how there's just like the little tidbits of extra sound. I love that. And that's why for Sergeant Pepper, I really like Mr. Kite. Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite is my favorite song on that album because it's like there's so much extra little production fun that going on in that. It's not just a straightforward ballad or a straightforward rocker.
Yeah, the Foley stuff and the sound design stuff that they started to include is super duper very cool.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to get so basically I'm still learning what this show how this show is going to be, and I just really want people to have a I guess an ear to these cool conversations that I'm lucky to have with all kinds of neat people. So when you ask me for certain questions, I'm like, no, I think it's just basically I want people to know, how cool you are and the things that you do. What are some of the things that, I know that you are a musician and I know things like that, but if you wanted to tell the people listening to this about your art, what would you say? Like what would you I know that you write and you make music, but what would like your artist statement, if you will?
Well, I think that music is certainly the most it's definitely a hobby because I know that for a career, I do think that I'm a good songwriter, but I was just thinking about the to go into that as a profession, you have to deal with a lot of theory-minded people and I do study music theory and I know quite a bit about that, but it's not it just seemed like too heady and music is such a ubiquitous popular thing. It was like there was no way that I could make it doing that even on a small scale, like being a composer. So that's more like a hobbyistic thing, but I take it very seriously and there's like if you've heard my music, you know that there's a ton of different influences going in there and I would call it pop music a lot of the time. Some of it's very straightforward and very consonant, but sometimes it gets pretty bizarre and kind of forward reaching. And I like both sides of that. But yeah, I mean, I guess besides music, I also write a lot and I draw. And my actual profession as not only a student, but I'm also a tutor. So I'm just passionate about teaching, I think, in general. And actually screenwriting is probably what I'm most interested in and what I want to do as a career. But, the practical thing for me right now is somebody in college is to get probably get my master's teaching and do that for a bit and then see if the screenwriting thing takes off. Because I know that it's incredibly impractical to want to screenwrite right out of college. It's like it's very tumultuous industry you have to break into. But that is actually my main focus is screenwriting. And then I just feel like I also draw and design graphics. And it's just it's always important to be able to express yourself and I'm just pretty artistically minded, so it just seems like, that's in the stew of what I do always.
Yeah. And with you, because you just do a little bit of everything, I really know that whatever it is that you decide that you want to do, you're going to succeed because you
Oh,
you you
thank you.
and I really like I said I really enjoy our correspondences because it's just really nice to share your when when you get I'm looking behind you at all your awards and stuff because you work hard and you share that with me and I like that make I'm proud of you, and I've only
Thank
known
you.
you what did we do our was it a year was it has it been a year, did we do it in
October
October? Yeah, wow,
2024.
it's been a
Yep.
year. So we like I said, we did our show and we've kept in touch. And then something we had talked about, and then I proposed we would do a Tales from the Zeeborhood episode, but we could touch on it. Is that you and I never thought we'd ever actually physically meet because I never, I got a 20-year-old car and I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere. And you are 6 hours away. But Matthew decided to be a very adventurous 19-year-old, which I could not have done at your age. But in May, our mutual appreciation for one Trevor Dunn, bass player extraordinaire, uh, was at the Avalon in Catskill, New York, and I was going to go, and you decided on a whim that you were going to go, and I was so glad to meet you. But you scared the hell out of me, kid, when I didn't know how you were going to get home that night.
Well, I'll tell you this. I didn't know about that band when you told me because Trevor is in so many bands. It's hard
Yeah,
to keep track. And the first time I actually listened to them was on the train ride to the concert. And I was like, I should probably familiarize myself with what they sound like.
yeah,
And I think they're pretty good.
yeah.
Um,
What
But
a neat experience, though. I mean, like, to give our listeners a thumbnail sketch about it is like if you've never been in the Avalon, it's a very small club. I think that when you walk in the bar section, it seems like it's bigger than the actual music section, but it's
yeah.
very small. It was well attended, but it was a very small crowd and it was very intimate. And you and I got to do something really cool at the end of that show, and we both got to meet Trevor Dunn,
Yes, we did.
which is pretty neat. And if you hadn't gone
W-
first and been brave, I never would have been brave. So
Well, I'll tell.
how was your experience with it?
Um. Oh boy. Well, I remember you telling me, and I got those tickets, and I'd been awarded a $2,000 college scholarship, which I had just gotten in like March, so it was running out, but I still had quite a bit of money in my bank account. So I was like, this is might be my one chance, so I might as well take it. And I also was just feeling impulsive for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Um, and I was pretty naive planning the trip out. Like I didn't know how much money I was gonna blow through and how long it would take. But I mean, I did it, and it was the stuff of myth. That was quite a crazy night. And I do remember being like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able, because the guy, something very, it was a very serendipitous thing because like I traveled all the way to the I don't know what it's called. So it's like I've got to get back to you on that. It's like some huge train station that's like the
Oh,
mecca of.
was it Penn?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Um, so I traveled all the way there into this train hall, and like I was trying to get a ticket to the. This place was so far away when you input it into Google Maps and you put my address, it didn't even show up.
Oh
So
gosh.
I had to figure out how I was gonna get there through an alternative method.
Yeah.
And I go up to the guy who's like administering the tickets, and he's like, "Well, you're not gonna get there until like 10:30 at night." And I'm like, "That is not gonna work. I'm gonna miss the entire show." And just then, somebody dropped out of that slot on the train, and I got to get their ticket. And I arrived before you,
You did, and
which
we
is really,
drove there. Well,
yeah.
to be fair, Google got us lost and we ended up in the woods before we got to the show. So,
Well, yeah. So, I mean, so that happened, and I was like, wow, like, I guess the universe really wants me to go to this thing. And when I was on the Amtrak train, a rainbow appeared over the sky, and it went from super duper rainy that day, and a beautiful, like, bright, luminous rainbow just shined down on everything. And I was like, okay, this was a good decision. Obviously, the universe is working in my favor. So I get to the town, and it's like this totally rustic, like Twin Peaks, like I've never been in a place that's like that.
it's
And
magical in Catskill. It really is.
yeah, so I mean, I took an Uber to the venue, and I got there like as soon as the opener started. I think there's this band called Pocket Merchant who are like a smooth jazz band, and they were great. Every
Oh,
band that played on the bill was super great that night. Um,
and I missed them.
and
I missed most of them. I only heard like the last half of this last song or song and a half, and they were so good, and I was so mad because I think they were a local band to Catskill, if I remember right.
oh, I don't know.
Oh,
But you got there a bit late, and it was a super surreal experience because Trevor and his bandmate Sally Gates, who's on guitar, they walked in like super unceremoniously and were just watching the show from the stage. And I didn't freak out or anything, but I was like, that is so bizarre that a guy whose music I've been listening to for almost my entire life and has a huge impact on the whole band has a huge impact on my aesthetic sensibilities is like right there. Like we're not even that far removed from each other. And it was super weird. And yeah, and then Pocket Merchant got off and this band called Microwave started to play, and I really like them a
oh yeah,
lot.
me
They're
too.
yeah, super sleazy, like noise rock, very loud. And then Titans came on, and that was when our boy Trevor Dunn stepped up to the plate. And I mean, I maybe I should let you tell your experience of seeing them first.
Well, for me, it was like I said, we arrived from Plattsburgh, got to our hotel. We ended up staying in this thing called the Bavarian Manor, which is cool. I will tell anybody if you go in the castle area, go. They're super reasonably priced, very kind people. Loved it. I felt like I was in Twin Peaks. We got there, like I said, we got there late because the our Google Maps, because you are in mountains, so our Google Maps said, no, we would like you to be in the woods now. So when we got there late, and I was didn't know what to expect. I really liked the what I saw of the opening band, liked the second band, have managed to connect with the guitar player on Instagram. So I we keep in like touch. We like each other's stuff, so that's cool for
Oh, cool.
microwaves. But Trevor Dunn has been and Mike Patton together, and actually, in Trey too, and Mr. Bungle as a whole, but the trio have been important to me since I was 14. And I 14 or 15, and to go into a place and have that same feeling that you had, like, oh my gosh, Trevor Dunn is right there. And they're humans, they're men. I've met Mike Patton, I they're just men, but I
I know you met Pat, and I wanted you to relay that story
oh
because I think I forgot what
I'll
happened.
so I will tell you that. And he was very nice to me. I can tell you that. But I was flabbergasted because I never thought a lot of things that were going to happen that night. It was very serendipitous. That's to put it that way. I didn't expect to go there. I wasn't expecting such a close show. It was a celebration. You met my best friend Wendy. It was a celebration of our 30th years of friendship. It was just the
Wow.
perfect night. And I was very much a starstruck teenager, but not in a
Mhm.
weird way, but like in a way like, wow, that's Trevor Dunn. And to
Yeah,
see
yeah,
that and to have that same feeling and have you have that same feeling, like he's just a cool person.
yeah.
He's just a cool person, and he's very generous with his fans, and he takes chances, and like, you and I both like avant-garde things, and I think that he is kind of the king of that. I mean, Mike Patton too, but you know,
I think I was gonna say I think that he's done so he's done so much for the genres of experimental rock and avant-garde metal and um all these there's like a cornucopia of bands that are like post Mr. Bungle that are you could call them like Mr. Bungle clones essentially.
yeah.
Slipknot
Oh,
basically
don't
took
even get
their
me started on Slipknot.
they
Don't even.
they essentially took their entire stage get up from Mr. Bungle. But
Oh,
if we're talking about music, I think that they have done. I mean, I can't think of another band that has spawned that many imitators. I mean, I genuinely can't. Um, but I think I was gonna say I think that Trevor is like such a legendary dude. Like he's been on. I saw a clip of him in Sean Lennon's band on David Letterman. I saw
oh
him.
wow. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he's in. He's been on Jimmy Fallon with Tomahawk. He's in like that viral video where Mike Patton is doing that Mondo Cane concert in
Oh yeah,
Italy
yeah.
that has like 2 million views. He's on bass there.
Yeah.
And I feel like, like for us to have the conversation that we did where I was being looked at as a peer, I think that it left an impact on me that I can't say I've had with really anybody else of that caliber. I mean, I'll tell my side of the story. I'm gonna let you finish, but I was just gonna say, like, Trevor is such a brilliant musician and such an amiable, like, gentle spirit. It was
Yeah.
so enlightening to be able to talk to him and spend time with him.
It was refreshing, and it's like I know, like I worry because I know in a weird way, being in radio for as long as I have had, fans and listeners overwhelm me at times. And not in a bad way, but like, you're just trying to do your grocery shopping and someone's, hey, so I didn't want to be that guy because, I've been around musicians all my life pretty much. And they just played a gig and they're tired. They don't want, but he was so generous with his time for both of us. And I don't
Hmm.
think anybody else approached him that night, as far as I could tell.
I think that what happened was that it wasn't. I mean, I don't know if anybody in the crowd really knew who Trevor was outside of the context of that band. I think that they were just going to see a show and it didn't really, I don't know. I mean, I didn't really talk to many people at the gig, but yeah, I mean, he was I felt a little bit like I definitely didn't want to bother him, but I mean, we took one photo that was defective and we had to take another photo again, and he complete like no qualms from him, like he didn't
Yeah.
care. And like, that is insanely cool of him, you know.
I think it's because he actually is a music fan. And I think because, what I've learned about them as growing, like when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with Eureka, California, like absolutely obsessed. So
The
I think
place.
about, I know of all places, like, I mean, well,
Oh,
because like I was like, I want to go there. If they make music like this there, this is where I need to be. It's
isn't it
California,
like
man.
isn't it like a dilapidated
It's like a
like it's not
dilapidated logging
California?
town. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's in Northern California. It's very much like the town I grew up in, because where I grew up in, it used to be a paper mill. So and then when industry leaves, it leaves, that carcass behind it. And like in our case, I felt very similar. Like even though I didn't realize at the time, because when you're growing up in a small town like I did, California is movie stars. California is Hollywood. And I didn't really know that basically they were growing up in like the Plattsburgh of California, or like
Yeah.
what's the biggest city near you? I mean, like maybe
The
I would say
it's
Huntington.
actually I mean, it's pretty much New York City itself, like the Big
Yeah,
Apple.
yeah,
Manhattan is and Manhattan has been glamorized in movies, but when you really walk the streets of Manhattan, there's a lot of peaks and valleys and there's a lot of garbage and rats and it's pretty dilapidated at times.
yeah,
And I feel like you have a band like Red Hot Chili Peppers who come from sort of the Sunset Strip type of California, and then you have Bungle who are in like a meth lab, sort of permutation of California, and you can hear the difference in the music,
yeah. And
which
and
is
I and I
pretty
think
remarkable.
and I mean, like, I don't know what how big your town is. I mean, but I know like Plattsburgh, where I am today. I mean, our population, I want to say it's like 16,000. I'd have to look. I'm probably wrong on that. So it's kind of around the same size as Eureka, but Eureka itself seems a lot more like my hometown, which was very small. So and it's just I just thought they were cool because they were California. And I think that you're right. I think that I had this preconceived notion of what California is. It's like Sunset Strip, it's sleazy, it's LA, but in reality, they were just a bunch of like lonely kids who didn't have the internet. We didn't have those kind of things. So they had to take an amalgamation of anything that would drift down for culture, and that came out in the music. That's why I think it is so eclectic, because every single Bungle album, even from the demos to the Bunny, it's all different.
Hmm.
Every album's different, and every album is different inside the album. So, and I don't know,
Yeah,
I'm getting away from the show, and we'll come back to I guess that. But all in all, the show was an amazing experience for me, not only because I got to meet you, because that was cool. Like I always love being able to meet my internet music friends in person. I've had a few
hmm
experiences being able to do that. And it's great. Um, I'm a big fan of Uncertain's and Neubauten, and I have met some of those people in person and on the internet. So it's just incredible. Music joins people, but I that night was just magical for many reasons. Meeting you, meeting Trevor, just all of it.
yeah. I was
It's
gonna say
it's
like
incredible.
it seemed it was almost was engineered
Yeah,
beyond any of our doing. Like
yeah.
everything that went right, you know.
Yeah. So that was my take. I mean, I enjoyed the music. I loved microwaves. I wish I could have seen the opening band. It was just a really cool experience. And then, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell me your experience, because I do struggle with memory loss. Part of my complex post-traumatic stress disorder diagnosis means sometimes even if I'm really happy about something, my brain tends to close it off. So these episodes are also a way for me to preserve my memory. So take it away, Matthew, because I want to hear how you experienced it, because then I can like, oh yeah, that's right.
Well, I remember that day. I'm speaking like I'm a war veteran. I remember that day very well because um it was in May, so it was like May 23rd, and I just graduated from freshman year. Like that was done like 10 days before or like 16 days before. So I was pretty jazzed about that ending, and I did really well my freshman year. So I kind of did that as like a treat to myself. And I had to actually go into Lynbrook, which is a town that's kind of near mine that is sort of like it's like the town plaza, sort of. It's like kind of the center of where everything, I don't want to say cool, but like it's something you go there to do things,
Yeah,
basically. There's like a big kind of strip and, so in Lynbrook is the train station that to Penn's
Penn
is
Station.
Either
I think
Grand
it's Penn.
Central or
I
Penn.
can't. Isn't it terrible? So you took the railroad and you took the LIRR,
Yeah, the Amtrak.
and I think it takes you. I should know because I have been into there. I don't. One is a bus station and one is, you know what? Keep talking. I'm googling.
Okay, well, I remember that day it was super dreary outside and it was cold and yeah, I mean I took that LIRR ride like not really knowing what to expect. It was sort of like mindless on my part. Like I was just doing it. To this day, I don't know how I got home alive from that and because I'll tell what happened after the show. But getting to the show was yeah, like I said, I didn't think I would actually make it because I thought that there would be no tickets for me. And serendipitously, one person dropped out and I got their ticket and I was able to come on time. And like when I got to the Catskills, is it
So,
Catskills
so,
plural?
so Catskills is the mountains, and the town we were in is just called Catskill. I had to look that up because my brain did not like the singular, but it's singular, and it is Penn Station, by the way. I looked it up.
Okay. So when I got to Catskill, it was like this very it did kind of have that logging town vibe about it, and there was something kind of menacing about that day because it was alternating between super dreary rain and like these like rainbow laden like sunshininess. But when I got to the town, it was very dreary. It was getting dark. It was sort of cold out that night, even
Yeah.
though it was May. So, like, I was just dropped off and I was like, well, I'm just going to take an Uber to the venue. And I'm having awkward small talk with the guy in the Uber he's like, are you from here? I'm like, no. And he's like, well, why are you in town? I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to see this rock band at this club that you're taking me to. And he's like, oh, that's brave. I wouldn't have done that if I was you at your age.
No way.
And
No
yeah,
way.
so I got to the venue and I mean I was pretty nervous that they would turn me away because I didn't want to be like late to the show or anything and I was kind of just overreacting. It didn't really matter. But I mean I got in there and yeah, it had some cool decor and I got in there, the guy checked me in and Pocket Merchant were playing and I really was into it. I was like, "Oh, these guys are great like for being the opener." And yeah, I saw you and you introduced me to some people and
Because remarkably, I bumped into a kid that I knew from Plattsburgh who, oh, by the way, we have a special guest that I'm sorry, my cat might be joining us. Hi, buddy. See ya.
that's
Cool.
adorable.
Thanks, man. Okay, doke. I'm I'm burning a candle and I don't want him to decide to walk into it. So there's a fella I know named Joe who's from Plattsburgh. He lives down in that area now. He likes microwaves, so he came to that show at the Avalon to see microwaves. And then all of a sudden, I heard Amanda, and I knew it wasn't you. I knew it wasn't Wendy. And I'm like, who else knows me here? And it was him. So I had to got to tell him. I said, oh yeah. I said the opening. I said the middle guys. You're here for microwaves, but I said the band, the headliners, that's the bass player for Mr. Bungle. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, no idea. So I don't think that a lot of people knew that it was. I think it probably would have been differently attended if they would have said, kind of like, you'll see punk rock shows. It's like former blah, 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 or whatever. If they maybe
Yeah.
played up the Bungle aspect, maybe, but I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that it was so small, like it could only really hold 60 people
Yeah.
max maybe.
Yeah.
Um and I remember going over like Trevor was hanging out with Sally by the merch booth and I kind of was like around there like checking out what they had. They had nothing. Like this was at the end of like I think it was just a small stint around Catskill, and they had like one Fantomas CD that was signed by all of them. They had one shirt. So I got the sense that this was like that they weren't going to be doing like stints for a while. So
Yeah.
I really relished that I got to see that show. And then yeah, microwaves came and I mean they were pretty heavy. I was doing some moshing and the like the vibrations of the every like all the instruments emanating and they had okay, so this is well illustrated in the pictures. There were these purple overhead lights that was just a wash. The whole place was just purple. And it was something about like the heat of the lights and the vibration of the music. I did actually get a little lightheaded and I
Oh
was
yeah. It was
yeah,
intense.
I was a little bit like sweating and it was super kind of high voltage.
Yeah.
And microwaves they played. I really liked them. I
Ah,
hadn't
they're
heard of
so
them.
good.
Yeah, very noisy and raucous, just like how punk music should be. And I got to talk with some of those guys, and they were cool. And I actually did have an interaction with Trevor really briefly before he went on stage, where I just said hi to him. And I'm pretty short. I'm about 5'2", so for a guy that's very short, because just genetically, I have a lot of short people in my family. And Trevor he's pretty tall, like he's about 5'8", so he was kind of towering over me a little bit. Yeah, but I just said hi to him, and he said hi back. And then they went on the stage, um, and it was this super droney, like psychedelic rock. And but I remember that night, like everything was like it was a very jovial, jocular mood, like I remember that Trevor and the drummer were like ha having spats like verbally with each other. It was all very silly. And like Trevor was talking to the audience, like ribbing them a little bit, and it just had this air of like, silliness or like anything goes.
Yeah. And it was a Friday
And then
night, which I think was cool too.
yeah. Um so then they got off. Like most of the band got off, the three got off, and I'm like kind of you were talking with Wendy or somebody, I think.
Think so.
And I was kind of just awkwardly skulking near the front of the stage waiting to talk to Trevor because I had a story I wanted to tell him that I had incubated on the Amtrak train because I was like, if I meet him, I want to tell him something cool. So I shake the drummer's hand, and the drummer kind of signals to Trevor I'm waiting to go up and talk to him. So I go up and talk to Trevor, and I shake his hand, and I'm like, hey Trevor, great show, and he's like, oh, thanks, man. And normally that's where the interaction would end, but I wanted to have a cool story to relay to him. So, and this is a true story that when I was 13, I wrote on Trevor's site. I was trying to get a band together back then at the age of 30. I'm a very precocious child.
Very
So,
much.
yeah, so, I was trying to get a band together, and I remember the collaboration thing wasn't really happening, and I asked Trevor, like, what do you do? Because I know Bungle were super collaborative. Not expecting him to reply. He did reply when I was going through his site like a year later. I saw my name, I saw that he replied, and he basically told me, um, that you don't really need to collaborate if you have the vision and the follow through to know what you want to do artistically. And the reason I was telling him this was because I had won an award the year before for one of my original songs. And I wanted to tell him that as like he inspired me like a passing of the torch kind of thing. And I told him that and he was he's like he when he's talking to you, he's looking at you really intently. Like you can tell like it's not some tossed off thing
Right.
like superficially like a rock star like posturing. And he was super enthusiastic and very congratulatory and for him to congratulate me on that being the sheer musician that he is super duper. It's surreal. The whole
Yeah.
night was surreal.
Yeah.
Meeting him was surreal. Um, and I don't think that I didn't really speak to him that much. It was pretty much just that, and we got the photo. I think you talked to him far more in depth than I did. So it would be cool to talk about what you guys are talking about.
Well, it was, I think is what, like, again, what I had said, I think when we were talking before, he is first and foremost a music fan. And what I've noticed about him, because he's pretty open on social media with what he shares. And like, I love that he shares his archives of stuff and the things like, oh, I was 13 when I wrote. I love that he can still be relatable as an every fan, even though he is an accomplished person. And I think
Hmm.
that that's what makes him approachable. I like, because I too was a precocious teen And I shared this with you, but I wrote Mr. Bungle a letter when I was 15 or 14, 15, whatever I was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they, although they did not write back, they did send an autograph, and they said, I just recently found the letter, which I shared with you. But I mean, that just shows you that even back then, like they're they have some, and I say this with nothing but love, they have some scary fans. I've encountered some scary Mr. Bungle fans, almost
Uh-huh.
fanaticism sort of like level, but and I love them, so don't get me wrong, but like he's very open for some for a musician with being able to show like the his process of things, and like when he does his collage mixtapes and things like that. So he's a cool dude, and he's an inspiration to me.
Yeah.
And that's what that's why I'm glad we both got to talk to him to tell him that.
And he's just a yeah, he really is just I think he's just a music fan at heart and into art and all this stuff. And the dichotomy between him and his music is pretty striking because Disco Volante, which is my favorite Mr. Bungle album, has to be one of the strangest albums ever recorded in music history. And I think that I don't know, the strangeness of their music, I think brings out something in people that isn't always super exemplary.
Yeah.
But he was just a very nice guy, and it was just like it's hard to reconcile like this is the guy who wrote songs like Carry Stress in the Jaw. This is like this super worked through thrash metal jazz thing. Um yeah, it was great.
And I got to talk to him right after you, and I was very like I base like I kind of I don't I much like when I met Robin Hitchcock the first time, I kind of like blocked it out, but I remember most of it because I got nervous. And I
Mhm.
introduced myself and I said, "Thank you. I bought a mixtape from you. It was my gift for my 4 year sobriety from alcohol." And I remember when I ordered my tape, I had written that in there, and he wrote me back, and I keep it in my email. So I sometimes I need to cheer up, right? And it says,
Robin
"Congra-"
Hitchcock?
Oh no, Trevor Dunn. And when I bought the
Oh,
mixtape, when I got the receipt that it was being sent, it said, congrats on your sobriety. That's huge." And then he sent me told me where to reach out to do an interview, which was my ulterior motive to meet him, was to say, "Hi, I'm a big fan. I am launching this online media thing. Would love to have you on it." And I've reached out a few times. It's not working for me. I am also persistent, but not in a weird way, but I'm persistent. So will we ever have Trevor Dunn on a show on Electric Z? I don't know. But he did tell me if I do launch electricz.com for radio, he'd be interested in having a show. So there's that.
I do remember being by you when you were telling Trevor about that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm very interested in that. Here's my email."
Yeah.
Um, I
So I
didn't
gave,
really have an
well,
yeah,
he's
I
got
didn't
an
have an
Electric Z sticker somewhere in his wallet.
yeah, I didn't really have an ulterior motive to meeting him. I just wanted to meet him and relay, my passing of the torch. But then the night ended, and I miscalculated and had no idea how to get home from. I knew how to get there, but getting home was going to be a challenge. So luckily, all the crust punky dudes that were at this venue kind of took. They were very caring, and they were kind of like, "Oh, we're going to get you home somehow," and they kind of adopted me for the last 10 minutes or whatever. But I was kind of like, "Oh, wait, I've traveled so far. How am I going to get home?" So I went back into the venue I went outside, like trying to calculate how I'm gonna get out of there. And you guys were just talking, and I think you guys were talking about radio or something. And I was just kind of standing near you and Trevor, and yeah, and that was the last of that night. And the way that I ended up getting home was some guy from the venue drove me to the train station, and I slept overnight in that train station and woke up the next morning and immediately got on the train. And then by 10 a.m. the next day, I was back home.
I promise you, there is no way in hell I would have had the stones to do that at your age. No way.
Well, it's it's
No way. And
fairly punk.
it's very punk. And I felt bad because I was riding with somebody else, and I didn't know how to get you there. And I couldn't, like, in a perfect world, I would have just said, "Get in the car. We're driving you to Long Island right now."
Mhm.
So, but it didn't work out. You had quite the adventure. I worried about you all night long. And I'm like, "Let me know when you get home."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was
I mean,
worried.
I feel very I mean, I joke about it, but I feel very grateful that it was very heartwarming that people were so like supportive. And oh, I forgot that. So like me and these guys are like trying to scheme a way to get me home. Is coming out of the main floor and he looks directly at me and he's like, "Good night." And I was like, "Good night." So that was really heartwarming. And then I got driven there, and I mean, I'd suffice to say I got no sleep. I think I got 1 hour sleep at like 3 to 4, and then by the time 5 hit, it was time to go back home.
Were you able to crash on the train at least?
I crashed when I got home. I slept from like the first thing I did was I took a shower because I don't think I've ever been dirtier in my life.
Yeah.
I felt disgusting. So I got in the shower and, then I just went to bed from like 10 to 2 or something abysmal like that. Um, and yeah, that's how we did it.
Well, I'm honestly like, what an adventure. Like I felt like honestly, like I felt like I was on like a teenage adventure in a way. Like because if you would ever told me, like I'm like, so I met Mike Patton in 2003, I think, 2 or 3, 2003 or 2004. So it was a while ago.
Hmm.
And it was easy because it was a venue close to home kind of thing. But this was something like I wasn't expecting any of this. Like like serendipitous is like the word of the night. Like I feel like it's like Pee Wee's Playhouse or something right now. But
Yeah, yeah.
everything worked out. And I was able to talk. So I talked to Trevor and I was really nervous. And I remember telling him, like, Eureka reminds me a lot of my hometown. And I remember him saying, where's that? And I'm like, oh, Osceola Forks, New York. Like you'll never know where this is, you know. And we talked a little bit. And then what happened is I went into the bathroom to vandalize the bathroom by putting an electric Z sticker on the mirror. So I came out of the bathroom and Wendy was talking to Trevor. And then I came over and started talking and we started talking about radio. And then he did tell me a funny story that since I'm not going to get him on the show likely, I was talking about the phenomena because Trevor is 57 and I'm 48. So we're of an age where there was no internet and sometimes you'd go out in the woods and there would be pornography. It's just a Gen X thing. And I asked him if he had ever seen woods pornography, and he said yes. And he told me about a picture he had clipped out of a magazine and kept in his wallet. And it was just a pretty lady with her boobs. And he was like, I kept that in my wallet forever. And I'm thinking to myself, like, that he showed that to Mike and Trevor and Mike and Trey. Like, they all knew about the lady in the wallet. So it just made me think
Yeah.
of him as a teenager pre-bungle, And it was just he was very open. It was cool.
I mean, you got to remember that when they were recording that album, the first album, they're pretty young. I think they're like 22.
Yeah, they're babies.
Only like only 3 years older than I am, really.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's what made it cool. Like when I got into them as a teenager, I was like, they weren't that much older than me, but they were older than me, but they weren't like they were like same age as my sister, like 9 years older than me, which is like I just couldn't believe that there was people making and I blame them. I blame you. I think you've seen this, maybe not. Like you can see like this clown right here.
Hmm.
I blame Mr. Bungle for my obsession with clowns. I blame them completely. Well, that and Stephen King's It, but they
Yeah.
definitely that's definitely a part of it. But I mean, there
There
were
was
some
a lot of
fundamental.
there was a lot of creepy clown media coming out of the late 80s, early 90s, and the first Mr. Bungle album definitely played a big hand in that.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, but all in all, like I mean, like it was great. I really hope to connect with Trevor, and I would love to have him on the Pursuit. That's what I pitched to him. It was just it was a great experience. He was very kind to me. He's probably the nicest celebrity I ever met. And should I ever get to interview him, I'm going to introduce him when I do my monologue with him as the nicest man in rock and roll because I believe that from the bottom of my heart. He
He
is
is.
legitimately the nicest man I have ever met that is quote unquote famous.
Hmm.
Although I will cut you quickly because before we go on because I want to talk to you about like more younger Matthew high school stuff.
Hmm.
The quick Mr. Bungle or Miss Mike Patton story. When I met Mike Patton, it was Mike Patton with Roselle. I think I want to say it was 2004, but I can't remember honestly. It was at Higher Ground in Burlington, and after they played, which was cool, it was just neat because I mean I like Roselle, and it's like it was again like something I wasn't expecting.
Hmm.
Mike Patton walked out this off the side stage. And by that point, excuse me, a lot of people like were gone. And I was with two friends and fans. and neither one of them wanted to go up and meet him. And I'm like, well, this I have been waiting for this opportunity since I was 13. I am not missing this opportunity. So I
He could
walked
be
up to
pretty
him.
intimidating as a presence.
Oh,
Like
but that's the thing is I was nervous because I had read stories and this is pre-Wolf Mother, but or maybe around the same time. So real Bunglesphere fans know that joke. um, but I walked up to him and he walked out and I extended my hand. I was very polite. I said, I put my hand out. I said, hey, thank you so much for coming to Burlington. And he shook my hand, but he put his hand on top of my hand and shook it. He goes, no, thank you for coming. And I
that's
was
so
like,
sweet.
oh my God. And I didn't want to bug him any further. That was it. No, this is pre-cell phone, really. So I was just like, I was happy to meet him. I was kind, he was kind, and I split. And that's my story. And it was wonderful, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna say as a closing thing from that, I think that I think that a big reason why Mr. Bungle as a band is so like apocryphal and legendary. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is because of the presence of Mike Patton on
Yeah.
vocals because people have um it's sort of a Kurt Cobain thing where he's mythologized into oblivion and people project what they want, like what they want him to be onto him, rather than who I think he actually is, which is just a super eccentric and quiet, omnivorous music fan,
Hmm.
um, and businessman. And I think that like I've heard stories of people going up to meet Patton and trying to do some wacky thing to impress him, and he's completely like dead affect, like has n wants nothing to do with it. So I think that that is important, like when you're meeting musicians, is just to be earnest and be
Hmm.
genuine and tell them and thank them for coming out and just tell them what their work means to you. You know, don't go above board because, you know, you risk being a nuisance and you know, you risk annoying them, which is, you know, just unwanted on all levels.
And that's what I witnessed. So I can't remember. Our higher ground is in South Burlington now, but it used to be in a place called Winooski. And I'd have to look. I might have seen the Pat and Rozelle show in Winooski, which would be easier. That was a weird little room. But I also saw Mr. Bungle in that room in 1999, and that was on the California tour. And I'll tell you what, the fans obnoxious. Not all of them, but as with anybody who listens to Mr. Bungle knows, there's always, and I'm going to say, because we can swear on this because we're not FCC regulated. There's always some dickhead who's got to shout "girls of porn." There's
Hmm.
always got to be a dickhead who does that, and
Like
that's
9 years after the album's been released and they
yeah.
haven't played anything from that album since.
And they were just like "girls of porn, girls of porn." I was like, I'm gonna knock their
Yeah,
ass out, you know.
yeah.
And it was cool though because like and actually the cool thing about that show was ICP was supposed to open for them on that tour, but they dropped out. So instead it was an evening with Mr. Bungle. So it was a little bit longer. And it was cool, but it was nice to be with among fans who traveled all over New England to get there. There was a gig in Montreal
Why
that we didn't go to, but
why did Mr. Bungle choose ICP as an opener?
I have no freaking for the California tour. I have no freaking idea.
It has to be to annoy the audience. There's no other
That's
way.
that's got to be it. Although
It's
it's
got to
funny
be
because
an antagonistic thing.
I don't really know much about ICP other than like I really dig the imagery and the cult around it. I think it's kind of funny. I think it's cool. Like I think I like the fact that they got the gathering. I think it's neat. Juggalos are cool with me.
That's what I was talking about with the creepy clown thing. When you had the first Mr. Bungle album, Creepy Clowns from Outer Space and ICP all have that dark
Yeah.
carnival thing going on. And also I think Oingo Boingo plays a huge part
Oh,
in that
very much.
a aesthetic because those early Oingo Boingo albums are circus music essentially.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're infusing that with ska and like new wave and I'll talk about them in the next round. I don't know why I said round,
Well, it
but
kind of is. So, because I love the warts and all aspect of this. Like we said, we're going real lo-fi because Matthew and I tried for like a good solid 30 minutes to make this work. So we're using Zoom. But we're using the free Zoom, so we're popping off every 40 every like 38 minutes. We're starting over.
yes.
So,
Yes.
this is definitely a round. So for the next round, we'll talk more. So anyway.
I'm a big podcast head. Like when I listen to, I mean, when I go to school, it's like a 2 hour commute. It's actually not as bad as it sounds. It's pretty chill. and I'm used to it now.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, I find that listening to music on the bus is a little too like I don't know what it is. Like it's a little too strident for me. Like I like to
Yeah.
listen to things that are more like gentle and easier to listen to. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. Like the good one is the one that I pretty much exclusively listen to WTF with Mark Maron.
I love
Um
him.
yeah, because he has like a huge backlog of episodes.
I'm gonna
I
feel
was just
really
listening.
old when I say this because
Let me see which.
what's that?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Go
he's
ahead.
my excuse me, he's been my favorite comic since I was 15.
Wow.
And I was
I was gonna say the last episode of that podcast was that I was listening to says it was I was listening to an interview with Demi Moore. I think it's not Demi, it's Demi,
yeah,
right?
she's Demi now, I believe, or she maybe always has been, and everyone's mispronounced her whole life.
Yeah, I'm going through the backlog and just like I love to I just love to listen to that and like learn people's backstories. I've always been like that.
Oh, he's incredible. So what's weird is I found him on Conan O'Brien when I was a teenager, and I used to tape Conan O'Brien on VHS, like my favorite clips. Like I have some Faith No More on there. I have a lot of Mark Maron, probably. It just like I was a dork, and that's what I did. So whatever. That's why there's so much cool shit on YouTube, is because dorks like me tape shit off VHS.
The archivists are totally crucial.
And I didn't realize what I was doing at the time. I just like, this might be the only time I'm ever going to see this. Like, I actually have, speaking back of Faith No More, I have when they were on the Tonight Show doing Easy. I taped
Uh-huh.
that. I stayed up and I hit records. Um, but I had gotten into Bart Maron because of Conan, and then like he kind of went quiet. And then
Uh-huh.
I got my first iPod, and it was and I was like, okay, I want to listen to podcasts because I was unemployed at the time, and I got into I listened to, oh God, it's one of the original NPR like music podcasts that they did back, and this would have been in
With
2000.
Terry Gross or something.
I don't remember. I don't right now. I can't remember. But I know they had Weird Al on it, and Weird Al was talking about songs he liked, and he got me into the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band because of that. And then the other
I
podcast,
know them, yeah.
oh, I love them. And the other podcast I was listening to is I found WTF. I'm like, oh my God, this is Mark Maron. So I started listening from the first podcast that he did, and they were. Did you go back to the beginning yet, or did you?
No, I mean it kind of revitalized his whole career, didn't it?
It did. Okay, so this was the cool thing is it's like I'm like, holy shit, this is Mark Maron. And it's kind of like what I'm trying to do now. Like I'm trying to do this in my living room, but he did it before anybody. That garage is epic. Like he did it first. And being a fan, I added him on Facebook and he added me back. And it was weird because he didn't have a lot of friends. And I sent him an email and I asked him what his recording rig was, and he got back to me. And I was like, oh my God. Because I'm like, I want to do this too. If he can do it, I can do it. And I never did. Um,
I think it's just Garage Band or something, right?
Yeah, he
Super
exactly.
basic.
Yeah, and it's basically because he was on his like second divorce or whatever. Like his life had fallen apart. He wasn't going anywhere, but he decided to invite his friends on his podcast. And that's how it started because he was friends with so many comics. So he had like it was the early shows were like Bill Burr and like Louis C.K. and all of the early guys that he had come up with. And then he started getting famous people. And like I stopped listening probably 10, 12 years ago. I just couldn't keep up, and I stopped listening to podcasts.
It's ending soon, and
I'm gonna have to listen to the last one.
yeah, I mean I think that it's just I don't know too much of his comedy, but the that podcast is just super illuminating.
He's
And
great.
I mean it's great that, we have a I mean comics are kind of known for this, but like he doesn't hold back at, saying about, how he used to be a pretty bad person and, he's definitely grown and we're kind of reaching what's the word? Amnesty, I guess, in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah, and the thing is like when he started, like he was heavily addicted to cocaine, so he was very aggressive. Excuse me, and that reflected in a lot of his performance. And I
Hmm.
didn't realize that because I'm a silly 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid. I just thought he was really intense and funny. And I always thought he was cute. So there was that. Even before he's this rugged handsome. Now we're talking bowl cut or beetle cut Mark Maron, bad glasses. Always thought he was handsome.
I'm not a big Marin head, so I don't know what you're talking about.
But I'll tell you but I to watch him develop and grow that podcast from being an early listener, although that man will never remember me and I probably will never meet him, I am so incredibly proud of that man's redemption arc. Like I think that if there's anybody that freaking finally deserved a fair shake, it was Mark Barron. So one of the things I appreciate about our connection, Matthew, is that you do remind me a lot of myself when I was your age. And from the stories you've told me, you remind me a lot of myself as a teenager and even younger, being such a passionate music fan. And I think that, we identify, like, even though I'm almost 50, I can still very much feel what it felt like to be in high school. And I think that's why I identify with that first Mr. Bungle album so much, because it was so pinnacle in my own high school career, or actually middle school, and like the feelings of the song, like in the song Dead Goon, like kids can be so cruel. And I very much felt very ostracized and awkward, and I didn't have a tribe of people until I got older and met people on the internet. So I wanted to kind of talk to you about, like, what was your high school experience like, with music and like all of that stuff, like you're essentially like the growing up and the high school experience.
Well, I I'm just gonna come out and say it that I am certainly on the autism spectrum, and I have been for my entire life. And when I entered high school, I had never really had social issues in school. I mean, the worst it ever got was when I was first entering school. And let me see, in kindergarten, I had to switch schools because I was treated, I don't know what happened to her, but I was treated awfully by this one elderly teacher who kind of like singled me out and would almost bully me, in class. And I went and reported this to my mom, and she immediately took me out of that school. And I spent first and sixth grade in a school called Covert Avenue School in Elmont. Um, so, I mean, it was tough, like first to third grade, it was pretty hard. And then in fourth grade, I kind of refashioned myself into a, um, a bit of a class clown. And that was kind of my way of gaining acceptance among my peers. And something super interesting happened where I could be my weird, I think I've mellowed out a lot, but I was very weird and bizarre, and that was the image that I was pushing. And everybody liked it and thought it was cool, and people didn't think that it was weird. So it was kind of kind of an I don't know what you want to call it, like a just like an eye-opening thing to see how, just from an anthropological perspective, see how that played out. And then in fifth grade, I got a little bit more ambitious and I tried out for I wanted to get involved with student politics. So, which is essentially in fifth and sixth grade, it's a popularity contest, but I
Okay.
took it very seriously. And in sixth grade, I ended up becoming president of the entire school for 1 year.
I love that.
Um, yeah, and when I did that, I became very, very popular. And all of a sudden, people wanted to talk to me, and people thought I was really cool and things like that. So I kind of peaked way too early. By the time that I got to middle school, things started to get a lot rockier for me. And I realized that the cultural domain that was rapidly advancing and becoming different, the social codes had completely turned around from being like a 12-year-old, 11-year-old kid. And in seventh grade, I did have a close cabal of friends, and eighth grade was worse. I think that eighth grade, I started to have my first feelings of like, at least in school, clinical anxiousness and depression. Um, and then by the time I got to high school, um, something really disturbing had happened, where I had never really I'll try to explain this to you. There was a sea change that happened from eighth grade to ninth grade, kind of going into 10th grade, where everybody I knew, like all these cherubic kids, like, these angel-faced babies that I knew in elementary school that were my friends, started to fashion themselves in a in this way that I can only really describe as this is I'm a big fan of It's Always Sunny, and I think Glenn on that It's Always Sunny podcast, he was talking about the term sexy indifference, which is essentially, everybody became super detached, super sexy and cool, and like they couldn't care about anything, and they all listened to the same music, and we're all going after the same girls in this very fetishistic, animalistic way that was completely devoid of any type of humanity. And I didn't, you know, I didn't have that capacity to be able to do that. And it was a huge slap in the face going into ninth and 10th grade, seeing these people who have grown 6 inches taller than me, in Deftones t-shirts and
Oh
like,
no.
side, like not ill-fitting beanies, like, become the new cool. And, I think probably from just, I think that anybody could see that I'm a very sincere sort of person, and that sincerity um it left me completely in the dust. So I had a terrible time in high school because it seemed like there was such a massive evolution that was happening among my peers. And then my perception was out of my control a little bit, and I started to, then the labels of like nerdy, geeky, weird, that had proliferated enough where that was my main identity. But the thing was, I wasn't trying to be weird anymore like I was back in the day. So it was very frustrating to be like, no, I'm not trying to be weird. I'm trying to be sincere and express myself with my art. This is not a put on to be strange or whatever. Um, but that didn't work. And I think that whole experience really taught me. I mean, there's not really another word to describe it, but it was just so profoundly disturbing to see people that I knew become these super sex pesty, just vessels of people whose main interest was to look cool and gather and treat sex like it's some type of unit, which insanely disturbed me. It still does to this day. And I'm even grappling with it now as like an anthropological thing. Like I'm actually very interested in it because I've never seen anything like that in my life. Um, so when high school ended and it was time for me to go to college, I had a miserable GPA because I was like, I don't even want to get into like it was terrible. So miraculously, I got accepted into a college, which is the college that I'm at now, and it's a great college, and I'm super blessed to be able to go, and because I know a lot of people don't have that opportunity, so it's not lost on me that I'm able to go. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the difference between me in college and me in high school is like apples and oranges. It's completely different. And around that time in high school, I started to listen. My listening started to shift from indie rock, like Pavement and Weezer and Sonic Youth, stuff I liked in seventh and eighth grade, to I was listening to film composers, and I was listening to things that were not a part of the rock lexicon. And in like 11th and 12th grade and like 10th grade, I was discovering things at a really rapid pace. And a lot of those artists that had become my anchor throughout high school, I still fervently admire and are an inspiration to me till this day. So I guess I could talk about some of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because honestly, like I think that you're like I think that it's so hard when you're in it to ever believe that there are other people who are in it the same way as you feel. Because I felt very much like that when I was growing up. I was labeled the weird kid, and it was because I was, encyclopedic about my special interests. And although I have never been officially diagnosed. I would not also, I've always thought by perhaps also am autistic. And in the 90s, that just was not discussed about girls. We just, girls
Mhm.
were not considered that. So, um, I understand that, like feeling ostracized just because you're just being yourself and all you are is just being earnest, you know. But I will say this, you didn't peak too early. There's a peak in a valley and a peak in a valley. So you still got plenty of peaks to come.
Well, I suppose that's contextual. Um, but yeah, so I mean in high school, yeah, so my interest shifted from rock bands like indie rock to composers and just things that were more just really esoteric. Like I'm almost a little embarrassed to talk about. I'm not embarrassed, but I know that the things I was listening to were so niche and like off the beaten path. Um,
But it brought
like
you
I got
joy.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll say this, like I have the only other person I've met that is actually into this is my internet pal Joanna Wang. I've shown you her
Yeah,
album before.
yeah,
And she it's actually kind of surreal that I mean, I'm not her friend or anything, but we have an Instagram text chain that we've had a few friendly exchanges.
yeah,
And she dropped out of high school when she was like 16 to become like a pop star in Taiwan, and she was huge. But behind the scenes, she was listening to stuff like Baroque music, They Might Be Giants, Oingo Boingo, all this super specialized video game music like
yeah,
chiptune stuff.
yeah.
And then she got some artistic freedom and was able to release her original music, not covers, on, I think it was Sony Music Taiwan she was signed to as like a 20-year-old or something like that. And she's the only person that I've met that the late 50s, early 60s, there was a wave of like novelty. I guess there was a fascination with keyboards. And then, you had all this music like Andre Pop and Perry and Kingsley, Raymond Scott that were doing these keyboard records, like these super short, quaint, pretty much just demos of what you could do with a keyboard. And this is kind of early electronic music like Delia Derbyshire and the whole BBC
Oh,
radiophonic
yeah, she's
workshop. And
cool. She's
yeah, yeah.
cool.
So that I got into that. I got into film composers and listening to things that were not based in rock. Um, Speaking of Joanna, I got into her albums when I was in high school because I've mentioned the band Lemon Demon to you before.
Yeah,
Neil Cicierega, who that's his band. Um, I believe that she was a fan back in the day, and I know that they're like vaguely acquainted with each other. So I started to check out her music, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I don't think I've listened to. She might be the artist that I've listened to the most legitimately in my life because her albums, like her original music albums, are so eclectic and masterfully done. I think that she's one of the musical geniuses of our time, legitimately. And she came up with this record last year called Hotel La Rue. I think it's the one I sent you.
yeah.
And that's got to be one of my top 50 albums of all time. It is insanely good. So,
So did you when you know I we've talked about like when we go for a walk, like you walk and think and I also walk and think. That's our process. I think about high school you, like what were you listening on your phone? Were you listening on a Discman or a Walkman? Like, because I know that you collect media too, right? So like so how are
I
you pumping your tunes?
I sold a lot of my records because I needed the money.
Yeah.
Um,
The tale as old as punk rock time.
Yeah, but I was just listening to a lot of music on my phone at that point, and I got a record player for Christmas. It's actually right over here. I don't want to turn my camera because I don't want to mess with the wires. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, I'm a citizen of the 21st century. I listen to music on my phone
Yeah.
mostly.
And honestly, like I hate to say it, I struggle with my Spotify, my allegiance to Spotify. I know how bad it is, and it's hard.
I've
Um,
never used that once a day in my life.
and honestly, I think I've been a user for so long. I have so many playlists, and it's my way of easily making mixtapes because, but I still do stuff on YouTube, but whatever. But for just like casual listening and walking and working things out and working on stuff, I use Spotify as a tool. I always have. Um, and I don't know. I I miss putting in a Discman and going for a walk. I miss putting in, putting a tape in a tape player. But I am also a citizen of the 21st century, and this is how I listen to music now. Unless I'm listening at
Hmm.
home, which can be a variety of tapes, CDs, or records. But if I'm on the go, it's cheap headphones in my phone.
Yeah, and I think like I'm lucky enough to have friends who always, I mean, introduce me to things that I'm not really too in the know about. Like Kendrick Lamar, he's amazing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm thinking more hip hop, R&B oriented artists like Childish Gambino. I was huge into him for a little while, and I mean, yeah, I think that I'm trying to think of what else I was listening to in high school. Yeah, so I don't think my XTC phase started until early college because I'd always liked new wave bands in the vein. I don't want to call XTC new wave exactly
Yeah,
because they have so many things that they do or the things that they did are rest in peace. Um
I know.
yeah, what was I gonna say? Like Devo, Oingo Boingo and bands like that. So
Well,
I
and they
knew
might be.
that
How did you get into They Might Be Giants? I mean, I love them. Like they are in my top five favorite bands. Like absolutely for sure. Like so, how
me
about them?
Me too. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really don't remember how. But the funny thing about that is I didn't have any. I had the most obscure like odds and sods. They Might Be Giants albums. I had Miscellaneous Tea and Long Tall Weekend. And if you know Long Tall Weekend, it's pretty much a collection of outtakes.
Yeah.
Um, but those were the only ones I knew. I don't know why, but I had Miscellaneous Tea and
Well, that's a great
just
one though. You get a little bit of everything.
yeah, I mean their whole musical universe and like then I get older, I'm like 14 and 15 and I'm like getting into the albums and I'm like, John Linnell's lyrics, I'm
I
pouring through
love
them.
him.
I'm like, what? It's like almost like a kind of a Randy Newman sensibility with him
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you want to pour through every line because his lines are so dense. He's a genius.
He is.
Um,
I adore him. I think he is the coolest of the cool. And I mean,
yeah.
I like Flansy too, but I tend to I tend to gravitate to Andy, not Colin, and
Mhm.
for XTC, and I tend to gravitate to Linnell over Flans because I
I
just
don't
think, I don't know.
I don't really have a favorite, but he is I think the main draw of They Might Be Giants when you're getting into them
Yeah.
is uh just how it's hard to explain, but they have this kaleidoscopic thing about what they do where the music is incredibly compelling, the lyrics are incredibly compelling, and it's just these two oddball guys that are making this like geniusly melodic pop music and like stumbling into so many different genres along the way. And when I was a kid, I mean, when I was like 14 and 15, like songs like We Wanna Rock, like I was like, what is Linnell talking about? And then I like go and I like research. I'm like, this guy's the most fascinating guy I've ever seen.
And
So
the cool thing about, They Might Be Giants fans is that damn They Might Be Giants wiki.
yeah,
And that's incredible. I mean, like,
that's a big part of it too.
for anybody who knows or doesn't know, if you're not a fan of the band, there's an incredible it's called This Might Be a Wiki, right?
Hmm.
I think it's what it's called. And it's like every show, every song, like if you want to get into the band or learn anything, that's where you go. It's
I
just
used to
it's amazing.
I used to read pages of that in high school and I used to visit this fan site called museumofidiots.com that has a bunch
Oh,
of
yes.
interviews with the Johns and just learning about like they have to be like one of the most fascinating musical duos around. Yeah, I love those guys.
It's serendipitous with
Um,
those guys too. I mean, they went to high school together, they lost touch, and they end up moving into the same like neighborhood, the same day in Brooklyn or
same
something.
apartment
Same
around the
apartment
same
complex.
day.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and they're just genuine. And I tend to be on the more morose and like I joke like I'm so goth kind of thing all the time because even though I don't really look goth anymore, I'm very much on that somber side of things. I prefer to live there. And I think that's what I like about Linnell is that he deals with these amazingly deep, somber things, but with a catchy accordion, hook. It's like we've talked before, like I've Got a Match is probably my favorite, one of my favorite songs by them. And
Mhm.
that's like, oh gosh, I mean, the lyrics are just it's too
That
much
whole
sometimes. It's so good.
that that whole Lincoln album is like super melancholy once you get
Oh
past the
God.
the
Yeah.
super fun indie pop songs. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't, I just love them. And I wanted to, so you said that you had a sticker. Matthew and I corresponded and I sent him some Electric Z stickers. And I also sent him a They Might Be Giants flood sticker. So the last time I saw They Might Be Giants was, I think, in 2021 or two. I can't remember. It was a reschedule of the Flood album tour because it was before, it was right when COVID was happening. So then they rescheduled it twice, finally got to see them. And I had never, I've seen them probably 9 or 10 times at this point, maybe more. I don't know. I'd have to look. And I've never met them. The first time I saw them, I waited outside forever with my friend Adam, and we didn't get to meet them, which was disappointing, but it was okay.
Hmm.
But it was at Linden State College in Vermont. And this last time, Flancy came out and he had those stickers that I gave you, which is the flood symbol. Do they have a special name for that? Like it's like a badge almost. The little
It's
thing.
based on it's based on the it's based on some emblem. I forgot what the name of it is.
Okay,
But
so it,
Flans does all the art for the albums
oh,
because he's
he's
an art major.
and he is such an oh my gosh. And I don't know. I love the They Might Be Giants staggered letters down the hall. I love that. So cool.
Oh yeah.
So when Flancy was handing them out, he was, I had never met any of them. So he comes out and he's handing out stickers. And when he hands me one, he accidentally handed me like a chunk of them. And I was horrified. And I was like, I don't know what he's like. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, no, I didn't want him to think I was being greedy. So I have made it my mission that every single time I encounter with a They Might Be Giants fan, I pay it forward, and I've given at least 4 or 5 of those stickers away so far. So I want to make sure Flancy knows I didn't mean to hog the stickers. It was an accident. They were stuck together, but they are getting good homes. There's one in Seattle or one in Bellingham, Washington. You've got one. There's one here, a couple here in Plattsburgh. I'm Pat, and there's one in the inside of my car. So I've been
Yeah,
sharing the wealth.
I was thinking like it's super duper cool that a band as particular as They Might Be Giants, they're incredibly popular. Um and I think I see fans that are like younger that are more into indie rock, and I see fans that are older. Um, and it's just really heartwarming to see those guys, how they're so accepted in the culture, you know?
And I really think when because I mean I feel old when I don't want to come across like I'm an OG blah blah, but I'm old, and a lot of this stuff came out in the time of my life. So it was weird for me when They Might Be Giants did the Tiny Toon stuff because it's like,
Hmm.
oh, that's cool. And then next came the kids albums, which I really think that solidified that fan base. It gave the parents something to give to their kids so they could be all family fans. I will say when they started opening up the all ages shows, I have been to all ages They Might Be Giant shows, and I've been to the 18 and the 21 and up. Sometimes I had a bad interaction with a younger fan who decided to start a mosh pit in the and I know that I know.
What are you moshing to if it's a
I
They
I
Might Be
know.
Giants?
I know. And he bumped and of course it's a concert and there's people are drinking beers, and I got an entire beer dumped on me and at the
Oh
show.
my
And I was
God,
like, come on, man.
that's
And by like a
awful.
16-year-old kid, I'm like, party foul. No, so I was disappointed. But I would say one of the best things about being to so many They Might Be Giant shows and now watching more younger fans show up, I love watching a kid who now can make it to the show because they're old enough, and he's usually there with their parents. And I remember watching it was a dad and a kid. Um, I got to watch that kid have their first They Might Be Giants experience, and it was so cool because they were so excited. And of course, like, everything was new and exciting. And it's nice to be a fan because it's like I have so many friends who like them, maybe not as fanatical as I do, but because they're so popular now, I mean, with like you got Malcolm in the Middle, you got a Dunkin' Donuts commercial for cripe's sake, they got all kinds of stuff where they've had
Those
exposure.
guys, you cannot escape them.
No. And the
They're
thing is,
everywhere.
and for the longest time, they weren't. They
Hmm.
were kind of a secret, like a kind of an alternative secret. And then like they blew up. And again, kind of like how Mark Maron, I couldn't think of people that deserve it any better, because
Hmm.
they've earned it.
Did you just see that they canceled the Bungle South American shows?
I want to thank you for your patience.
I'm
Is this our fifth one? Fifth?
I'm running out of steam, to be totally honest with you. I'm about to crash.
He's gonna crash. He's gonna crash. So I
Yeah.
wanted. So we're running out of steam, but we've been. I think this is our fifth round of doing this, but I knew
No,
this
it's only the
was
fourth,
only the
so
fourth.
it's not
Okay,
that bad.
someone's got to keep track of it. I'm old. I
Hmm.
can't remember. But I
Yeah.
but to wrap up, I just want to say thank you for being so patient and being so adaptable because I am running this on a shoestring and that means free Zoom for right now. But I wanted to
Well,
end
thank you for having me on the show. It's super cool to be here.
well, I wanted to end the show with this. Do you recognize this? This
What
is
is
the
that?
letter. It's a letter you wrote me.
Oh, can you read it? I
I
forgot what I put.
Oh, do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah.
I'll take a picture of it because I don't want to keep you awake. So I'll take a picture of it and send it to you. So,
Okay.
but why I thought it was cool because I love getting mail. Like, so if anybody wants to write me, Electric Z, PO Box 1972, Plattsburgh, New York 12901. Okay. That being said, I loved this was sent to my house because like I know you, so this was sent to my house. But I loved getting mail from you, and this has been sitting in my basket of things that I need to mail out and take care of and do. But I've been depressed, so I haven't done it. So I figured I would answer your question that was at the bottom of this, which says, "What have you been listening to lately?" And I can tell you what you were listening to. So this was around the holidays. You sent this to me. Do you want to know what you were listening to in
I think I remember what I put. Did I say I was listening to MIA around the time?
Yes.
I was listening to Secret Chiefs 3, and
Yep.
I was listening to a little known band that you guys should check out called Thinking Fellers Union Local 282.
And he calls it weird, sarcastic indie rock. And
Uh-huh.
I that makes me want to check it out because of that. And number one is the best, great, no one.
Oh yeah, yeah, the Beths. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember.
So that was yours. So then I started thinking is because I mean, obviously mine has changed since December. If I would have written you back, I would have said it would have been Meadows, King of the Castle, which was a song on the Trevor Dunn mixtape, which blew my mind and I needed it at that time at the end of the year. So I listened to that heavily. But what I decided to do was to go to my Spotify and I took the top four songs on my repeat, but I have an extra one because I don't agree with number four. So my list is, and I'll start from the bottom up. It tells me that I listened to Send Me Your Money by Suicidal Tendencies as number four, but I am pretty sure I've listened to The Light Pours Out of Me by Ministry. It's their cover of a magazine tune, probably more, but maybe
Hmm.
this week it's been that Suicidal Tendencies song. My third one is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles theme song done by Mike Patton.
Yeah.
My second one is Gasoline by High School, which is the lead singer of the Judy Bats. And number one, which is not surprising, is Eternal Love, the Avett Brothers and Mike Patton, their new collaboration. I've probably done a pretty big dent on the repeat for their algorithmic count.
I can tell you what I was listening to
Yeah,
today.
tell me.
I have a Last FM profile, so I can go back and
Oh,
see.
nice.
No, this was yesterday. I don't think I was listening to music today, but it wasn't being counted. Yesterday the last song I listened to was Harry, from Bauhaus.
Nice.
I listened to the first Susie and the Banshees album. I listened to Magic Carpet Ride by the Pizzicato Five.
Oh,
I
nice.
listened. I've been I've been going through a big Janet Jackson phase, so a lot of Janet Jackson, the Beatles, Please Please Me, and Kate Bush. That's
Oh,
what I
I
was
love
listening
Kate
to.
Bush. Love Kate Bush. And that's
Yeah.
the thing is what I like about you, and I have a lot of listening to catch up. I'm awful. It's like I go through phases where I can't listen. I just can't listen to audio, period, whether it's music, podcast, TV. I don't have a TV, but whatever. So I owe you some listens. But I will say this, you are so open-minded and you ask me for recommendations and you listen to them, and that's the music nerd dream, right? Like
Oh, well, I do remember some of the stuff I've sent you, and this might be a nice melancholy thing to end the show on. Is one of the albums that I sent you was by this guy, Logan Whitehurst, called Goodbye My Four Track, which is actually, I would call it my favorite album. And I wanted to mention this because a documentary on him, he passed away just shy of 30. it was released over the summer, and I actually did want to bring this up as like a closing note, so it's
Yeah.
actually perfect how you brought this up. I wanted to say that I watched that documentary, and it really it elucidated a lot for me, and I think that as a huge fan of Logan's stuff, it made me realize how little we really know about the musicians whose music we listen to. Like before I watched that documentary, Logan had a medulloblastoma brain tumor.
Oh my gosh.
Um, yeah, which is commonly found in children. So I think w he might have it might have been lying dormant as a child, and then into his 20s it came back in regression. Um, and listening to his music, I had built him up to be this like super funny, super weird, super duper creative and sentimental pop songwriter who he was also an amazing artist. I implore everybody to go check out his artwork that he has on his website. He was an incredible graphic designer and an illustrator, as well as an amazing musician. Um, and I kind of he was my hero for a long, long time because the sort of the nerdy homespun joy of his music that it was so sincere and it just resonates. That album is like my favorite album. And I watched that documentary and it really made me think of him in an entirely new light, where he kind of went from like this superhero to me, where I thought that he could do no wrong, to this incredibly vulnerable human being who um really tragically passed away with like no warning, super abruptly. Um, And I just think that that documentary is like a huge watershed moment for me, not only as a fan of his stuff, but just realizing how little we know about the musicians behind the music that so inundates our lives.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, I am, if anybody wants to check out that documentary, it was made by some small independent filmmakers, but as a fan of Logan going back from when I'm like 13 and loving that album and all of his stuff, it really is just one of the most beautiful, life-affirming films I've ever watched. And it was super depressing to see like my hero be brought to that incapacitated state and then just suddenly die with like no warning.
Yeah.
And I think that it just puts into perspective how precious life is as a whole. So yeah, rest in peace, Logan. That album is amazing. Everybody should check it out.
What I'll do is if you can send me a link to maybe something, I can add it in the blog for anybody who wants to check it out afterward when you're reading through this or listening afterward. I'll include some links in the blog on electriczee.com. Well,
Oh yeah.
I have to say this was an absolute pleasure. I'm glad we finally got to do it. It just has not worked out, as you know. I didn't have a computer all summer, so that was a delight. But everything is serendipitous, it seems like, in our friendship. So this was the right time to do it. So thank you.
Yeah,
I,
I had a great time. I mean, I am getting a bit tired, but that's because it's almost like 9 at night and you
yeah.
know.
Well, it's been a long day, so I'm tired too. I'm hungry and I want to eat a snack and I want to go to bed.
I just had a what did I eat? I ate like a multigrain bar like 5 minutes before we went on because I was getting
Nice.
depleted.
Yeah,
So
I have all I have is ingredients in my house right now. I need to make I'll do have some cheese. Maybe I'll have some cheese and then I'll go to bed. But
yeah.
thank you for this. And I hope that we can do more of these in the future. I would love to have you on any and all the shows that Electric Sea decides to do.
Well, if you ever get Trevor on the show, do not invite me because I do not want to take that moment away from you.
Well, I am going to tell him how important his music has been to me because if it weren't for Mr. Bungle, I never would have met you. If it weren't for a lot of like that's what I wanted to close on with like, I'm just glad that I've made another musical friend. And if it weren't for the internet's a terrible place a lot of the times, but it
Hmm.
really is a way to bring people together, especially through music. And I value all of my musical friendships that I've made. And those friendships are even bigger and stronger because of the people that I can connect with online. And I'm glad that you're one of them. Now we just
Well,
got to really, well, now we
I
got to
feel
get
the
you into,
same way.
well, we got to get you into Robin Hitchcock and make you a part of the Feg Maniacs.
I know the Soft Boys, and I like that album Underwater Moonlight.
Yeah.
And I had to bring up Ween again. I knew Robin Hitchcock because they quoted one of his songs. So I guess Gene is a big fan of Robin Hitchcock or something like that, which is pretty cool.
Well, you know what I should do is I should make you a YouTube mix of songs or just send you some songs because I really think that knowing what I know about you, I know that I think you're going to find him very clever. I
Yeah,
mean, the Egyptian stuff, I think you're going to really like personally. So,
I'll
and that's
send it
it.
over.
I will send it over. Matt, this was fun, fantastic. I'm glad we got to do this, and thank you for concluding the second episode of Tales from the Zebrahood. You are a welcome resident to the Zebraverse, and I appreciate you.
It's an honor to be included. Thank you.